Okay, so in this time, we're going to learn about organizational development tool that can help you with your personal, professional, or organizational development. It's a tool that I use often when I'm ready to implement something and just making sure that I stay focused on what's really important and to spend time and resources on. So, the first thing that you could see is that there are three levels to this, and on the vertical line, this stands for the level of commitment. Okay, and on the horizontal bottom line, it is the number of people. So in this particular case, we will take the implementation of a project like a new device or even sales of a product. For example, I know that Apple uses a process very similar to this. So, stage one of anything where the most amount of people at the bottom would, you get the most amount of people, but their level of commitment is at least is what I call awareness. And so, at that bottom level, you start with awareness, and awareness can be everything from simple marketing. It can be digital marketing, what you see on Facebook. It can be what you hear about. It might be PR or news articles on a particular product or situation. And awareness is important, and it gets to the masses, but it doesn't really create much activity. It creates awareness. And so the second phase of that, once you become aware, you can do what I call is involvement. So I happened to grow up Catholic, and in our church, it was funny. We called this the three T's of giving. And so the three T's of giving were time, talent, and treasure. And so, as you can imagine, your time is very important. You have complete control over it. Your talent is whatever your God given talents are, and you can utilize that for organizations or within your job or even personally with a hobby or a relationship you have. And obviously, treasure typically means money, and you have complete control over these three T's. And it's important to understand that when you become aware of something, if you want to go to the next level, you have to invest those three things, one of them at least, either your time, talent, or treasure into those things. And so, in the case of implementing a new device or a new process or buying a new thing, what you'll want to do is you'll have to ultimately get others to invest their time, talent, or treasure. And that is what a lot of organizations focus on because metrics are easier to be able to understand and track in these three elements. Time can be how much time did you spend on the job, how much time volunteering, those things which are very trackable either in both the for profit and nonprofit world. Talent, is very, very trackable from a standpoint of we need this kind of talent on this project. And so you can know, hey, I need somebody who has a finance background and a marketing background and those things so that you can put the pieces together for that. And obviously, treasure is very trackable in that you can track how much it cost, how much you made, what are you selling it for, what's the profit margin, all of those things when you look, depending on what your particular goal is. What I would tell you is that in this area, you get what I call incremental growth. So incremental growth, there's nothing wrong with incremental growth, uh, you know, but metrics are often, when you look at it and use those metrics of time, talent, and treasure, it creates an incremental kind of growth. And usually organizations are looking and they'll say, I want 10% growth on this next year, or I want to save this much time within an organization to become more efficient. But most of the time, when you're looking at really transformational projects, you're not looking for incremental growth. You're looking for exponential growth. So how do you get exponential growth? And so exponential growth is really based off of the third level, which I call engagement. So you might ask, okay, what's the difference between engagement and involvement? Well, let's first go back to involvement, and let me give you an example of involvement. Um, I'm involved with some charities. Most people are, and one of the easiest ways for me to explain it would be if I asked you an organization you care about, and let's say that you said I am involved with Habitat for Humanity, and you gave me, the reasons why Habitat for Humanity makes a difference, and you said, Dr. Todd, would you be willing to give $10 so that we could help build a home for the less fortunate? And I said, sure, and I pulled out my wallet and I gave you $10. Um, you know, Here's the question: how much more would Habitat have? Now, the obvious answer is $10. Um, but the funny thing that I've found is that as I've taught this over the years, one of the things that helps me understand kind of this process is that sometimes the most obvious answer is it actually creates a feeling of that they're missing something, the other person is missing something. So it is, in fact, that you would have $10 more, which is plus. Okay, it's an additional $10. Okay, if you said, hey, would you volunteer, 8 hours in a day to help build on this house? It would be 8 hours more of service that I could offer. Totally controlled in an individual way. Again, incremental growth plus. All right, exponential growth is multiplication. Okay, how do I multiply, what it is that I want? All right. To do that, you don't do that by these things. You do it by the fourth T of giving. Normally, this is where I would say, okay, can anybody guess what that fourth T is? So think about it. See if you can guess it. I'll give you just a second. Okay, so the fourth T of giving is actually trust. So, a little bit more difficult thing to quantify, but much more powerful. So, let's use that same example of Habitat. You asked me for $10, I gave you $10. The organization has 10 more dollars, but instead of stopping at that point, you said to me, "Hey Todd, thank you so much for your $10. Do you happen to know three or four more people who would share in our passion to help the homeless have a safe place to live tonight? And would you be willing to ask them if they would be willing to give $10 also?" So instead of a one gift, you now have gotten somebody to agree to share their trust with three more people, which creates the opportunity for you to make exponential money. So I will tell you that this is actually what good leaders focus on with regards to strategy is developing a group and empowering them to leverage not just their time, talent, and treasure, but more importantly, their trust. And when you look at, being able to truly move something, it takes a village to care for a child. It takes a village to move a strategy. And ultimately, just because it seems like it's an easy thing to it doesn't mean that it's easy for everybody else to understand and to change the way that they do things. So, here's the last piece of this equation that I will tell you that's so important is that, you know, so what I've learned over the years is that this top line actually is the level of impact on the organization, on the product, on your professional career, on your personal life. It actually happens that when you use trust, you make a greater impact on what's going on here than just trying to get people aware of things here. Awareness does not create action. You start to get action here, but you don't get engagement and truly exponential growth until somebody trusts you. It doesn't take much to trust somebody to give them an hour or $10. It takes an enormous amount of trust for somebody to share their passion and what they're doing with others and invite them in. And so I encourage you to not get stuck on this area here, where most organizations do, because you will see some growth, but it'll be incremental. If you focus your time and energy on trust and building it, you will see exponential growth in what you're doing.